means it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood ones of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways, all you rogue warriors out there. We're talking about the Ophiuchus full moon tonight. I used to call it Ophiuchus. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. Ophiuchus, 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 but it's Ophiuchus apparently. Come say, come say, or whatever, tomato, and stuff. Say however you like it. It's the least known zodiacal constellation. It is not used in traditional astrology. It's not used in sidereal astrology. It's not used in tropical astrology. It's not used in Vedic astrology. It is used in true sidereal astrology, which is also the side of astrology that is the least looked at and understood. There are very few people who are practicing true sidereal astrology. Most people who think they know astrology think you mean sidereal astrology when you talk about true sidereal astrology, not curious enough to ask you why you added the true in front of it. And so if you've been a fan of the show long enough, you know that I've had Athen Commenti on many, many times. As far as I know, I call him the creator of true sidereal astrology. He's at least the rebirther of it. He's at least the one giving it its renaissance and bringing it to the forefront. And Athen Commenti also has his site, masteringthezodiac.com. If you want to go there and get a report, spoiler alert, there is a link to get a discounted reading in the show notes. However you're watching this or listening to this, there is a link. It's the first link you'll see. And that will both give me a small boost, a small affiliate boost, and also get you, I think, $20 off your reading. So if you haven't yet had your True Sidereal reading, check that out. If you're a fan enough, you know that on my favorite things tab on the site, there is a link to Athen Commenti's Mastering the Zodiac, where you can get your readings. And it always gives me affiliate boost if you go to the favorite things tab here on rogueways.org and you scroll down. All of these are good things, but here's your True Sidereal link. This link doesn't get you $20 off. It's just a cool link to use to support the show if you want to get a reading and you want to support the show at the same time. But in this episode, since we're talking a lot about Athen's work, we're talking a lot about True Sidereal, and we're actually going to look at Athen's newsletter, which I also think you should sign up for. I love it myself. Then we're going to give you that $20 off, and that bonus is there for you, again, in the link below wherever you're watching or listening. So rogueways.org, great place to go. You can check out my favorite things. There's much more than the True Sidereal Astrology link. There's also my books here for you. You can also get them on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, on Audible, many places where books are sold. Or you can get them here from me, support me a little bit more directly, and also get your inscription, your signature, and your free channeled message in your books. There's all sorts of packages too, by the way. If you want to read the fictional trilogy, for example, you can get the trilogy all together at once. If you want to read just the source inspired channeled messages, you can get the inspirational books, The Key of Transformational Healing and All Endings Are Beginnings as a package. You can get all 5 as a package here on the site as well. I don't believe you can do that anywhere else. So that's all here at rogueways.org. Also, if you want to schedule with me, I do tarot readings, I do past life readings, I do sound healing. I do it all from afar. Anywhere you are in the world, we can work together. And all of that is here on the site as well, under the Spiritual Healing and Support or the Schedule tab. And one more thing, we'll look at the shop. Powerful orgone. This is the most recent birthed orgone. Got powerful pillars, really powerful, beautiful orgone lotus votives, and more. That's all here on the site. So you can go check that out as well. rogueways.org for all of that stuff. And one more thing before we get into the Ophiuchus full moon energy that's coming at us tomorrow. As of this recording, it's going to be on the 10th and the 11th of June here in the next few days. We also have rogueways.substack.com. This is where I publish everything that I'm writing as I'm writing it. All of the channel messages that come through the spiritual ancestors as they come through are here on Substack for you. If you're a supporter there, if you're a subscriber for free, you also get plenty of other free content. Really inspiring experiences and stories, scientific and political and other health related, all sorts of content that I do just as an author in general. And then again, those channel messages are for the supporters. So free or paid, you can be a subscriber at rogueways.substack.com. And that really helps me out. So thank you to all of you who are doing that. That is the best way to support the show as well. That I have no paid subscriptions otherwise. And so if you're someone who used to tip or you used to pay for a subscription to Rogueways, this is the best way to continue to support my work. If you love what I do, if you find value in what I do, I really appreciate your support in these ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, we do have an Ophiuchus full moon tomorrow and Wednesday. And this is a pretty big energy. I don't know if you know much about Ophiuchus or about True Sidereal, so I'll just mention that. Hold on. See, I just noticed a spammer popped up in my Telegram chat, and I just like to get on them and ban them as soon as possible. If you've been on Telegram long, you know that happens all the time, and so I usually wouldn't let that Telegram message distract me from the show, but when it's that type, I'm like, nope, you're banned. Anyways. If you don't know much about True Sidereal Astrology, you might not know that Ophiuchus, again, is the 13th sign. It is still on the ecliptic there. It is still in that same zodiacal line with all the rest of the 12 familiar constellations that we use, Sagittarius, Taurus, all of those things. But Ophiuchus is not usually counted in those traditional methods. And not only because it is just slightly off-centered, it still crosses that ecliptic line, and it's still between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So it's still there, but it's just a little bit skewed above that line. So it's a little bit off the line. It does cross it. Like I said, it is on the ecliptic, but only a bit of it. And the rest of them are kind of like squarely in the middle of that line. So the line goes right through them. And Ophiuchus just kind of like cuts off his foot, part of his foot. And so Ophiuchus is also the smallest of the signs along that. It's tall and narrow compared to fat and wide. You might think of it that way. If you were looking at all of the constellations in the night sky and you were looking at the ecliptic that cuts through them, you would notice they're all just kind of fatter. Some of them are a little bit smaller. Some of them are a little bit larger. And in True Sidereal Astrology, it's the only astrology that takes this into account. Every other type has just like different ways of cutting these up that don't really have anything to do with how big that constellation actually is on the ecliptic. So, for example, in tropical, which most people are familiar with, if you're like, I'm a Sagittarius, you're probably got this from tropical astrology, which is very normal. If you read horoscopes anywhere, it's probably tropical astrology. It's what the Western world tends to use. In tropical astrology, everybody just gets 30 degrees of the sky. They just cut it up even. Even if you go over or under 30 degrees of the sky, you get 30 degrees of the sky for your sign. True Sidereal says, well, if you only take up 28 degrees of space, you get 28 degrees. And then the next one might be 42, and they get 42. And Ophiuchus is like 10. It's very small. I don't know the official number, so forgive me. But it is the smallest, narrowest. So you have the least likely chance of being born in Ophiuchus. It is the least likely of all of the signs. If you're following True Sidereal Astrology, if you're following the others, you have no chance. There isn't any. Right? If you're True Sidereal, you still have a very small chance. Very small chance to be born in Ophiuchus. So it's the narrowest, it's the tiniest, it's sort of like the least on the ecliptic, but still crosses it. And it's right there in between Scorpio and Sagittarius. You can actually see that in this image here from Wikipedia. Here's Sagittarius, we'll say to the left of it, and here's Scorpio to the right of it. And so it's right in between there. So you could find, if you're somewhere in that range between Scorpio and Sagittarius or right on the cusp of either, you might find if you look at True Sidereal that you are born under the sign of Ophiuchus. You might be one of the rare few. And I am one of those rare few. So that was an interesting thing for me to find out. And one more thing before we get into Ophiuchus and this full moon coming up and some of the other things around this, the symbolism of it and what might be coming up collectively around it, or personally around it, is I'll just say that, I totally forgot. So I'll come back to it if I remember. What I was saying is the least likely chance. You look at True Sidereal, you might have a different sign. Yeah. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So for me personally, I looked at my tropical astrology, my natal chart when I was very young. I was about 16 or something. I got it as a gift. And I actually had to interpret it myself Getting the chart cast back then was actually difficult. You had to pay an actual astrologer to figure it out for you. Now you can just go to like any internet site and it'll just ploop it out for you. There you go. Back in 1997 or so, it wasn't like that. You had to know an astrologer and you had to cast it. So to get it cast was actually really expensive. And the person who bought it for me didn't have enough money to also get it interpreted. So I did a bunch of crystal meth and stayed up all night and had this book that I stole, and a big fat astrology book, or maybe I think I actually got it from the library. I wouldn't have been opposed to stealing it if I could have found it somewhere to steal. But apparently I respect libraries and didn't steal it from them. Anyway, I had this book, I had a lot of drugs, and I stayed up all night interpreting my own birth chart using this book to find out like what is north and south, what house is it, and like what could that mean, and wrote this out like 8 pages. If you've ever smoked a lot of meth, you totally relate to this right now. Maybe not the astrology part, but the writing, like 12 pages, handwritten while studying. That part, right? And I'll tell you, I wasn't always this tame when I was doing heavy drugs, but for this moment, I was just in a room doing that all night. So I have this handwritten, self-interpreted chart, and it seemed to predict my whole life. And not because I was fixated on those things that I had written. I actually put that away somewhere and just forgot about all of it. All right. Especially as I got older and was into other things and whatever. Didn't even think about it. But when I looked back on it, I was like, this thing nailed it. It nailed how many people I would have as significant, big loves in my life before I met my real soulmate late in life, which is exactly what happened. Right. It nailed my back problems, my back issues, and how they would be and develop, and all sorts of other things. Nailed it. So tropical astrology to me is still meaningful, and I love it. And when I found True Sidereal and I got that chart, that was only in the past 7 years or so. Whenever I met Athen Comenti, whenever he was first on the show, right? I looked into that and I did the same sort of process, but without the crystal meth. And that seemed to have nailed where my last chart ended. This seemed to pick up. So I told Athen Comenti about this, and he said, yeah, it's very likely that True Sidereal is more like what you're growing towards, what you're like, right, developing into, and maybe even the second half of life, and that maybe tropical is good for your first half of life. Like maybe that's just how it is for some people. It definitely seemed to be the case for me. But now it also is really interesting to me, because as I've been following Athen Comenti, and as we have, for example, this Ophiuchus full moon, which is not what it is in tropical, because they don't even have Ophiuchus. I'm not even sure what they say the full moon is in tomorrow or the next day. But for a while, I would look at both, and every time it'd be like a full moon or a new moon or some sort of astrological event in, whatever sign, the True Sidereal seemed to match more what I was actually experiencing and going through than the other. Sometimes they match pretty well, and sometimes they are actually the same. Right? Sometimes True Sidereal and tropical actually agree on what's going on. But True Sidereal is looking at what's actually happening in the skies. If you look up at the moon when it's full in the next, day, you will see it in front of Ophiuchus. The moment of fullness, it will be there. So this is what True Sidereal is different. Tropical is basing it on completely different things. So they don't always agree. So I just wanted to share that too, right? For my experience with True Sidereal is that it's more accurate now in the second half of my life. And it's also more accurate for me as far as these astrological events go and interpreting them. As always, you're free to do whatever works best for you, right? So this is just Wikipedia's Ophiuchus entry. As we know, Spookopedia, but I don't think they're really trying to hide anything about Ophiuchus. Who knows? But Ophiuchus, they say, is a large constellation, but like as we talked about, it's actually quite small as far as the ecliptic goes, right? But it's a large constellation in terms of height. Like if you again look here, here's all of Sagittarius in this corner, whereas Ophiuchus is this entire white area. So it is actually quite large, just not necessarily on the ecliptic. Straddling the celestial equator, it comes from the ancient Greek Ophiuchus, meaning serpent bearer, and is commonly represented as a man grasping a snake. The serpent is represented by the constellation Serpens. So it's actually 2 constellations. Ophiuchus is actually grabbing the constellation Serpens to sort of unite it into one Ophiuchus serpent bearer constellation. Ophiuchus was one of the 48 constellations listed by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy, and it remains one of the 88 modern constellations. An old alternative name for the constellation was Serpentarius. Interesting, Serpentarius. So the serpent is quite primary in Ophiuchus's energy. Being the serpent bearer, literally the name, even though there's a whole figure of a man, the serpent part is like sort of the highlighted part, is the part that we really focus on. So much so that its name used to just be Serpentarius, and its name still is Serpent Bearer. That's what Ophiuchus literally means. Ophiuchus lies between Aquila, Serpens, Scorpius, Sagittarius, and Hercules, northwest of the center of the Milky Way. So I'll say this too, according to Athen Commenti, Ophiuchus is literally at the center of the Milky Way. So it's also another interesting thing about Ophiuchus, as far as all the constellations go, they're, closer and further out from that center, whereas Ophiuchus is in the center. It's at the center, it represents the center. It's also interesting. The southern part, it says, lies between Scorpius to the west, Sagittarius to the east. In the northern hemisphere, it's best visible in summer. It's opposite of Orion. Orion kind of like dips down in the summer up here in this hemisphere, and then it comes back up in the winters. Ophiuchus is depicted as a man grasping a serpent. The interposition of his body divides the snake constellation Serpens into two parts. So Serpens actually goes all the way around him. So when we draw him, he's sort of grabbing the snake often in both hands, right? The snake is on both sides, which is also another interesting correlation here as far as symbolism goes, and having perhaps maybe two snakes, you could think of it. And so it goes on to, different things about the stars in it and whatever. And that's cool, but I don't really want to go that direction for this show. So you can go check that out if you are interested in astronomy on your own. So the serpent bearer, it says its name, it's pronounced Ophiuchus. 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 I still like Ophiuchus, but whatever. This is even a third way to pronounce it, Ophiuchus. But if you say it fast, it's Ophiuchus, right? The constellation is associated with the figure of Asclepius, the famous healer in Greek mythology. I am not going to lie. I don't know for sure that that's true, or that we just make that connection because they're such similar archetypes and they're such similar figures, and they have to do with the similar types of themes. Right? But was it called Serpentis, or was it called whatever before Asclepius was Asclepius? Probably. Right? Again, we have Ptolemy, who's, writing these things down and whatever, but he knew them. People knew them before that. Right? We have tons of information from all over the world mythologically, looking at the sky and mapping out stars and calling them things and anthropomorphizing them and giving them shapes and all sorts of stuff. Especially because that is the best way to navigate and to understand what season you're in, and right, latitudes and longitudes all depends on stars and sun and on these things, right, on the sky. So there's a lot of people who are really fond of calling it the sky clock. I would call it the sky compass, if anything. But yeah, sure. Time and space are actually one thing. So either or, go take your pick, right? So yeah, right. It's likely it was a man with a serpent before it was written down as such. And this archetype, this energy is what we're actually looking at. So is it actually connected? Sure. Yeah. I mean, it is. It's just a similar thing. But which came first? That's the question. We're not sure. So why do I have yet another one of Ophiuchus open? Sometimes I don't remember why I do things. So the snake is often associated with doctors, it says. So Ophiuchus is often associated with healing and healing images, it says, which is an interesting, you could just leave it at healing, but sure, healing images. The Romans associated the constellation with Asclepius. There we go. So the Romans were the ones who made that connection there, but it existed before them. Who learned the secret to immortality by watching one serpent treat another serpent with healing herbs. That's one version of the Asclepius story. But there are others. We'll get to some of those, perhaps. Zeus killed Asclepius with a lightning bolt because he didn't want everyone to be immortal, but later honored his good deeds by giving him a spot in the heavens. You're like, can't make them immortal, gonna kill you, but also here's your house in the stars. I guess it's a good trade-off. Sure. We have this theme as well of gods who are jealous, or gods who don't want humans to reach certain points. I would suggest to you that those aren't actually gods. Those are just, if anything, neat stories to teach something, or powerful beings that actually don't want you to accomplish things. The Babylonians associated the constellation with Nira, a god who was sometimes depicted with a human upper body and legs that were serpents, which now we're dipping into territory of, oh my God, the chicken guy. Did whole episodes on him as well. I'm not remembering his name right now, but yeah, he's got the often two serpent legs too. So yeah, we dip into all sorts of things. This is how symbolism tends to go, and this is how mythology tends to go. It all sort of like ends up bleeding into each other, not because each of these things is actually the same thing, but it shows you this analog nature of our mind, right? Of the way our mind works, analog nature of actually the whole universe, analog nature of our emotion, our passion, our inspiration. So interesting stuff. So here's maybe a perhaps slightly better picture. You can kind of see like the outline of a man, and he's got the snake on both sides, right? And there's Sagittarius, and there's Scorpius, and there's Libra. Barely crosses the ecliptic. But he also always reminds me of Chiron. And Chiron is both an asteroid, and Chiron is also a mythological being. And Chiron is also, like Ophiuchus, associated with healing and associated with serpents even, and associated with being perhaps punished unfairly, right? So we have this idea of sort of wounding. We have this idea of sort of having to overcome a lot. We have this idea of sort of coming to a higher state of awareness or consciousness and trying to use that for the betterment of others. And these are all the themes that tie through all of these sorts of things. So Chiron was a centaur. He was the son of Titan Cronus and Philyra, an oceanid or sea nymph. He lived at the foot of Mount Pelion in Thessaly. Unlike other centaurs who are violent and savage, he was famous for his wisdom and knowledge of medicine. Many Greek heroes, including Heracles, Achilles, Jason, and Asclepius, were instructed by him. So Asclepius actually learned from Chiron. So again, we have this connection not only with the symbolism, not only with the sort of energy of it, but also with this, like, again, this analog sort of interconnection between these multiple beings that have their own identity, but are really like archetypal, right? We see it repeated over and over and over. And so we see that again here. And his grandson Peleus, his great-grandson Achilles, he was accidentally pierced by a poisoned arrow shot by Heracles. He renounced his immortality in favor of Prometheus and was placed among the stars, the constellation of Centaurus. So he has his own constellation, as a star, I should say, actually, in a constellation. But he also has, again, an asteroid that has its own energy, too. And the asteroid of Chiron is the wounded healer. I have Chiron in my chart. I don't know if everyone does. I'm guessing so, right? It's somewhere for everyone. And it's right in the place of my deepest wounds, of course. And that's, I think, what it's supposed to be, right? And so our deepest wounds, I often teach, are also what become our greatest gifts. When we heal and transform our deepest wounds, that's when we are able to then give to others that gift of that healing tonic, right? And that's what Chiron does. And that's what Asclepius does. And that's what Ophiuchus does. So we see these connections between these beings, sometimes directly, sometimes a little bit indirectly. And so here's Asclepius himself. You see him again with a snake. Chiron also has snakes in his story. Asclepius was actually said to have been inspired by the snakes. In that story we just read, Asclepius was taught by the snakes, or he overhears them healing each other. But in another version of the story, the snakes come up and whisper in his ear while he's sleeping, and he's able to interpret their language correctly. And this is literally inspiring. It's bringing messages through from the other side to our reality. And this is what makes him a great healer. This is also what makes him a sort of awakened or higher consciousness individual, and a really interesting mythological symbol as well, a really interesting archetype. Right, we have this connection to the snake. So if you've ever wondered why a lot of different medical symbols are the caduceus, here and why there's these two snakes, it comes from Asclepius. And Asclepius had actual healing centers where people would actually go and be healed in ways that people hadn't ever been healed before, or at least, again, not that we knew of, or it had tried to be snuffed out, perhaps. Various secret orders tried to keep it alive, and various orders tried to crush it. And so maybe it was just reborn again, like I said, as like this renaissance of something that already was, but was said to be new. But he had these centers, right? In these ways people were being healed that weren't common, at least. And he said he was inspired. He said that this came from, right, being of a sort of higher consciousness, having been awakened or having been whispered to by the snakes. Now, again, this is now used commonly in like most medical symbolism. We have one or two of these snakes. We have that central rod, and we have these wings. But as an esoteric symbol, this is literally the symbol of you mastering yourself and becoming of a higher consciousness, again, enlightened in some way. Maybe not the floating ball of light enlightened, maybe not like the highest enlightened you can get, but enlightened enough that you can send and receive information from your third eye, right? And that would be being inspired. And the reason it's represented by snakes is because the reason your body's energy system is thought to look this way energetically, right? Each place where these snakes hit each other and intertwine is one of your chakras. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 at the top. This is your chakra system. This is your energy system. And this central rod is your consciousness activating and moving up your chakras. If each of your chakras is open, healthy, balanced, flowing, then eventually you rise all the way up to the top and you have this awakening. You have this crown chakra activation, right? And people talk about this. They're like, oh, I had my Kundalini awakening. Well, you have 7, at least, a minimum of 7. You might even have multiple for just one chakra, because you might have only gotten partway through one in one of your awakenings. So if you hear people say, like, I had my Kundalini awakening, you can know that they've probably only had one, and that's cool. But one is fine. None is fine. There's just no race here. But it would be a mistake to imagine that you just have one and you're done. And you can know this pretty easily because you can look at all the people who say they've had a Kundalini awakening, and then you can see how many of their lives are just pure shit. And if your life is falling apart and you're pure shit, you're by no means through your awakenings. You're still in the muck. It's cool. Most of us are. It's not all of us, but you're not done, right? So we know that you don't just have one. You can just know that. It's just a simple deduction, right? But this is what this represents. This is what this symbol is. And it comes from these stories. And again, even Asclepius, even Chiron, even Ophiuchus, whatever was first amongst them, they weren't the first. We can go back to Adonis. We can go back to all of the Jesus-like figures through various mythologies, and we can see the same symbolism again and again. And it's because that is actually what your energy body looks like. It looks like two snakes intertwining. And by the time they get up here, they're here, and you could say they're whispering into your ears, or you could say, my third eye works, right? And then your crown chakra can also initiate and awaken. So you have your wings. You have your ability to fly up to heaven and to get whatever information to come back down. You're a shaman, or you're a healer, or you're enlightened, right? That's what the wings mean too. That's what this symbol means. And it's been used over and over again in the Western world for this reason, but you can also find many other similar symbols through all sorts of cultures, often in the form of snakes as well. It says about this caduceus. It says, some accounts assert that the oldest imagery of the caduceus is rooted in Mesopotamia with the Sumerian god Ningishida. His symbol, a staff with two snakes intertwined around it, dates back to 4000 BC and 3000 BC. This iconography may have been a representation of the two snakes copulating I mean, they always have to reduce it to sex somehow, right? They have to debase it somehow. Do these snakes look like they're copulating to you? I don't know. Maybe they do. But no, that's not actually what it represents. Also, again, even if that is the oldest we can find, it's older than this. And we have to remember none of these things are freshly created. They are all analog. They've all traveled down. And the reason they're archetypal is because they're hitting on something that is actually true and actually universal. It is actually universal that this is your energy structure. That's every person, no matter what, whether you think it's true or not, or like it or not. And it will continue to be represented as such. It might change, right? The snakes might become fish or something. This probably not, but like it could become something else. Flames, for example. We often see actually phoenixes intertwining like this, and that would also work. That might happen. But the actual meaning of it, the energy of it, the way that it looks in the spiritual level, it's always going to be that way. So again, they tie it to Hermes, they tie it to all sorts of things, and it's because of the symbol's universality. The rod of Asclepius, I said, had only one snake and no wings. And that's also true of another person you might remember. If you've seen Moses with his staff, he often has a snake on it, and there's no wings, but there is that cross-like area, right? There's often the cross at the top where the snake is sort of twined around that part, and that also represents you having achieved this new plane of existence, right? This new level. There's always a little bit more above that because there's still the crown chakra. So there's the caduceus. Asclepius, the healer, had his serpent staff. He was awakened by the serpent, which is to say he had achieved awakening himself, clearing his energetic channels and centers enough that he could activate this part that is everybody's birthright. Every human has access to, if you choose to. And if you don't, you don't. And that's cool too. So the caduceus comes from this, and it is associated with healing for this reason. The serpent itself is this really intense symbol, so much so that I have this book of symbols, right? I use it often for my lightning oracle rounds. I use it for all sorts of things. It came to me synchronistically. And just in case you're wondering, it's A Dictionary of Symbols by Cirlot, Cirlot. It's a great book. Most of the symbols in it, and they draw from all sorts of mythologies, all sorts of traditions, and they just try to bring as much as they can together to give you an overview of any given symbol. So it's pretty cool. It's a handy reference. And it works really well, again, for Lightning Oracle, which anybody's welcome to come to. It's every first and third Tuesday. You get a message from your spiritual guides and allies through me. It's a group event. The field is really high. It's a healing event. It's really beautiful. But I use it for that. And any of the given symbols might be like a quarter of a page, sometimes a page. And the length of it tells you how much background the authors had to draw from and how much they wanted to make sure to include in order to be accurate. And the serpent is 5 pages long, at least. Let me see. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll say 5 because 2 of them are like half pages. So yeah, 5 pages long. So one of the longest in the whole book is the serpent. So we've talked about it tonight just in one aspect, which is that energetic pathway of your central energetic body and the way that it, 2 channels intertwines and where they hit. You've got a chakra and comes all the way up to your crown, right? From your root to your crown. That's one. The other nearly universal aspect of the snake is this idea of immortality, right? We've all heard this or seen this in some way or another, whether it's the snake eating its own tail, symbolizing that you are your own birth and your own death, and you're just one thing forever, right? You're eternal, or things are eternal. The universe is eternal. And the other way it's sometimes represented is the snake wrapped around an egg. Snake comes from an egg, right? Just like birds. This is the whole serpent bird thing is a whole other aspect, but it's wrapped around an egg to symbolize a similar thing coming from the egg, but also eats eggs. You eat yourself, right? You're your own birth and your own death. You are eternal. And so you might see it in some of those ways. But let's just check in with what the Dictionary of Symbols says about serpents, since this is the main aspect of Ophiuchus, and it's also woven throughout all these other characters like Asclepius and Chiron and all these other healers that are also enlightened type beings with higher level consciousness and associated here with the serpent. So serpent or snake, it says, if all symbols are really functions and signs of things imbued with energy, then the serpent or snake is, by analogy, symbolic of energy itself. Then the serpent, of force pure and simple. Hence its ambivalence and multivalencies. Another reason for its great variety of symbolic meaning derives from the consideration that these meanings may relate either to the serpent as a whole or to any of its major characteristics. For example, to its sinuous movements, its common association with the tree, and its formal analogy with the roots and branches of the tree, the way it sheds its skin, its threatening tongue, the undulating pattern of its body, its hiss, its resemblance to a ligament, its method of attacking its victims by coiling itself around them, and so on. Still another explanation lies in its varying habitat. There are snakes which inhabit woods, others which thrive in the desert, aquatic serpents, and those that lurk in lakes and ponds, wells and springs. In India, snake cults or cults of the spirit of the snake are connected with the symbolism of the waters of the sea. That makes sense, right? That undulating movement of its body, the way it is sinuous, it is like a wave. And a wave form is literally energy. All energy is a wave form, right? All energy is movement, is all wave forms. It's everything in the universe. And so the snake is literally universal in that it is something that moves exactly like all of the energy in the universe. So you can also, get a really good idea right here, just in these first passages, of why we would associate the snake with our central energy column. It's not a debased thing. It's not saying, the serpent has no legs, it crawls on the earth, like the Bible says, therefore it's dirty and it's low and it's our lower nature. Sure, but if you think of it that way, then you would think your unactivated channel is the serpent. And as it rises, it grows those wings we saw. Now it's bird, right? They're related. And so we see this energy aspect to it either way. The way that it moves like a wave is energy, and your energy is what brings your central energetic column to life, right? Opening the movement of that, which is a wave. So makes sense. We don't do things for no reason, and we don't do things by accident as humans. We're really good, actually. I mean, we're dense in the modern age about symbols, but the way we've placed the symbols for ourselves to remember, not dense, not an accident. We're like trying to remember really hard. It says snakes are guardians of the springs of life and of immortality, and also of those superior riches of the spirit that are symbolized by hidden treasure. Again, you are said to melt the encased, coiled serpent of your root and heat it and warm it up so that it can rise up through you. And this is your hidden treasure. It's your hidden treasure. It's not out there for you to find. It's right here, right inside of you. And that's your job as a human, I will tell you. So it's associated with those things, again, for a reason. Is because everything's pointing you back to yourself. Everything's pointing you back to your own awakening. As regards to the West Bailey, they just drop names in here, so you can try to figure out which names they're talking. It's not the Bailey of the female that everybody thinks is a Illuminati master or whatever. Not that Bailey. Some other Bailey spelled differently. But you can disregard the names unless you happen to want to find out. Bailey has suggested that the snake, since its sinuous shape is similar to that of waves, may be a symbol of the wisdom of the deeps and of the great mysteries. And again, it is. It is a great mystery that you have this energy body you haven't activated fully yet. It's a great mystery why you forgot. It's a great mystery to most people how you actually turn that back on and get back in there. Those are all great mysteries. It's a great mystery what happens to you when you become fully awakened. Perhaps. It's not even all that mysterious. Yet in their multiplicity and as creatures of the desert, snakes are forces of destruction, afflicting all those who have succeeded in crossing the Red Sea and leaving Egypt. In this sense, they are connected with the temptations facing those who have overcome the limitations of matter and have entered into the realm of the dryness of the spirit. This is actually a warning that should be given to all people who go seeking, is that if you go forcing doors open that you weren't actually ready for, and energy starts opening up within you and you start having experiences and you weren't ready for it, that is actually deeply dangerous, right? This is why people will be like, oh, anyone who has spiritual knowledge and isn't just sharing it is an asshole. And I'm like, no, you're an asshole if you go spewing things at people that they're not ready for. And you don't know if they're ready for it or not unless you're deeply guided to share it with them. Not just, oh, I think so. Deeply moved to do so. Directed to do so by your highest aspect of self and consciousness, or if you want to call your spiritual guides, or if you want to call it heaven or God, then sure. But if you go just throwing this at people, it's deeply dangerous for them. People go insane by having an awakening before they're ready. And they often don't come back in this lifetime. This is not things to just play around with. And I always tell people, like, don't touch anything that is even slightly occult unless you feel deeply ready for it and very protected and very strong in yourself and having overcome many of your own character flaws. Then you pick up a tarot deck, or then you get a pendant and you do some whatever. You don't do these things just on a whim. And the people who do have really bad experiences for a reason, because they weren't ready. So, this talk about the danger of the snake, this crossing of the desert, the temptations involved in this stuff, and the ability of it to destroy you, they're good warnings. Again, I told you it's your birthright, and it is. And not everyone's ready to step into their birthright, and that's okay. It's really none of our business. They're doing exactly what they need to do. So I've told you this a million times if you've been following me long enough, but I was told very, very clearly by my guides to shut up a long time ago. I was trying to tell everyone everything. I was trying to tell everyone everything I possibly could. I wanted everyone to know what I had found. I wanted everyone to understand who they were and where they were and what was going on. I thought everyone needed to know these things. And I got very strong reprimands. I'll tell you one more thing. I did not get those reprimands when I wasn't quite as conscious and had a negative entity that was feeding me information. It was true information. And I was not reprimanded for giving that information to people because I wasn't yet connected with the highest light within myself and the universe. And things can go poorly that way. And I was actually giving into temptation. I was giving into pride. And those things matter. If you don't have your own self all shored up and really well taken care of, you don't know your own shadow, you don't know your own ills, you don't know your own sins, we could call them, then you're going to harm yourself and others. Or you could just slow down and stop and calm down a bit and everything would be okay. Either way, but probably better not to do harm. Probably better, right? A lot of harm doesn't get undone easily or even within a lifetime. So I go on. It says, this explains why Blavatsky can say that physically the snake symbolizes the seduction of strength by matter, thereby providing us with a palpable illustration of the workings of the process of involution and of how the inferior can lurk within the superior or the previous within the subsequent. That sounds fancy, but they're saying what I just said. If you still have some unexamined shadow within you and you still have your own failings you haven't quite solved yet, and again, none of us are perfect, we're always working on it, but for the most part, you haven't brought those shadows into the light of your own consciousness, then it's going to harm you, right? Again, it's going to fall to pride, it's going to fall to ego, it's going to fall to megalomania. It's going to fall to imagining that you're special or different. This also happens to a lot of people. They have an experience, they have an awakening. They're like, I must be chosen. And as I've said so many times, you are chosen. And so is everyone else. You're not special chosen. You're not different chosen. You're just like everyone else. There is no difference. So, yeah, you can fall to that. Yeah, the material can seduce you. Yeah, this can be represented as the snake in the garden who is whispering at you saying, yeah, do this. Totally cool. And then actually you do great damage. That's your own shadow. If you don't know it, you'll do harm. So, we'll see how much more they hammer home on that. They said for Deal, another name we don't know, for whom the snake is symbolic not of personal sin, but of the principle of evil inherent in all worldly things. Same idea is incorporated into the Nordic myth about the serpent of Midgard. There's a clear connection between the snake and the feminine principle as well. Some people regarded Eve as an archaic Phoenician goddess of the underworld who is personified in the serpent. Although the better interpretation, they say, would be to identify it with the allegorical figure of Lilith, the enemy and the temptress of Eve. In support of this, they point to numerous Mediterranean deities who are represented carrying a snake in one or both of their hands. For example, Artemis, Hecate, I never know if I'm saying that one right, Persephone. And he relates those to the finely sculpted Cretan priestesses in gold or ivory and to the mythic figures with snakes for hair. He goes on to mention that in the Central Europe, there's a belief that hairs pulled out from the head of a woman under the influence of the moon will be turned into snakes. The serpent or snake was very common in Egypt. I will stop there. So it's also got this connection with femininity. And femininity often has the connection with the fallen or with the evil or with the one who fucked up, right? And people think that's really unfair. But this is also, again, another like esoteric symbolic truth that is much more indicative of something besides sex. It's much more indicative of the feminine principle, which is to receive and do so passively. And that's not harping on women, and it's not saying that it's weak. There's actually great power in passively receiving if you're passively receiving the right thing. And if you have chosen ahead of time what it is you're doing and you've made your will very clear and you're acting on that will, then your reception can be oh so powerful. But if instead you're just open to whatever and it just occurs, you are this feminine principle and you're passive, then what comes through you may be the darkest. So what comes through you may draw you down into the depths and may destroy you. And so if a tempter comes attempting and you're like, you're just passive and feminine about it, then yeah, you will perhaps fall. So there's a difference there, right? So this is why the feminine principle is often implicated in the fall. And it's true all over the earth. It's not a Western thing. It's not a white man thing. It is almost every culture has the feminine as the fallen or the one that created the fall. If you want to go way, way back, that is also just what happened. Something was created in the universe and something was then tempted by a darkness. And instead of choosing and standing in the will, that thing allowed that energy to pass through it and it fell. That's a feminine energetic stance. And a lot of esoteric teachings will say when you become masculine, then you will truly be born again, right? You will have died to yourself and be born again if you're truly masculine, which means you truly know and truly choose exactly what it is you're doing and why. That's the masculine feminine thing. It's not saying women are evil, actually. So if the snake is associated with that, again, it's like, are you going to let this beautiful energy center be co-opted by something else and just go, yeah? That's what most people are doing. And most people are fallen. Not most people are saying, actually, I'm this, I'm worth this, I'm doing this now. Here's how it is. It's very masculine. Very masculine. And again, if done in balance, and you're channeling the right thing, you can then become feminine in other ways, really beautifully. Divine feminine, powerful, unstoppable, they say. Divine masculine, immovable. All right, so the serpent is very common in Egypt. The hieroglyph, which corresponds phonetically to the letter Z, is a representation of the movement of the snake. Again, we've got that undulation, so the Z is the snake. I like that. Like the sign of the slug or horned snake, this hieroglyph refers to a primogenial and cosmic force. Generally speaking, the names of the goddesses are determined by signs representing the snake, which is tantamount to saying that it's because of the woman that the spirit has fallen into matter and evil, as I said, right? Not the woman, just the feminine principle. And again, of course, this would be connected with this primordial energy, because that same spark that's in you laying dormant and asleep down there in your root having been allowed to channel through just anything that comes along instead of a divine will. That is the energy of the primal creation. That is God's energy. That is what God gave to you, right? And here you are just letting it slumber. It's cool. You got to do you. The snake is also used, as are other reptiles, to refer to the primordial, the most primitive strata of life. In the Book of the Dead, the reptiles are the first to acclaim Ra when he appears above the surface of the waters of Nu. The demonic implications of the serpent are exemplified in the Duat, whose evil spirits are portrayed as snakes. However, these, like the vanquished dragon, may also take on a beneficent form as forces which have been mastered, controlled, sublimated, and utilized for the superior purposes of the psyche and the development of mankind. So again, you're only fallen so long as you are not using your energy for this highest purpose. At any point, you may reclaim your snakes, so to speak. At any point, you may say, actually, I'm stepping into my masculine principle here, and here's what I'm about. At any point, you get to do that. And if you do, then, yeah, your snakes become feathered. They become the birds. They become rising up, and they, right, all the way up to heaven. Let's see what else we got here. It says the same thing happens in the symbolism of the Kundalini. Exactly. It's literally the same. There is no difference between the Kundalini and the idea of the energetic central columns and where the chakras connect and the caduceus. They're all one thing, right? They just have slightly different names. They're all connected with the exact same sorts of symbolism for a reason, because it's universal. It also says the snake is an animal endowed with magnetic force. Because you have no idea how synchronistic that is right now. For me, in the most recent channeled message on Substack, it talks exactly about this. And it connects it to our fallen state, and it connects us to us being in matter on Earth and all sorts of stuff. So really interesting to me. Because it sheds its skin, it symbolizes resurrection. Again, you can be born again, right? Because of its sinuous movement, and also because its coils are capable of strangling, it signifies strength. In fact, in my tarot that I use, the Handel deck, the strength card is not a man mastering the lion, but it is a woman mastering the snake. I'll tell you, though, it is the exact same symbolism. Again, if we master the lion, that is to say we master our desires, we master our wills, we don't fall to our temptations. Same thing with mastering the snake. And it's interesting that it's a woman in this card, in my deck, in the Handel deck, because it is the feminine that needs to step up into the masculine, right? To become strong and powerful. Again, not a woman-man thing. All people are in this feminine state, not just women. And I say all people, meaning most people on Earth. It's not even saying feminine's bad. Again, positive and negative polarities, neither is bad. It's a question of when and how much and in what ways, right? Question of degree. Its ability to shed its skin greatly impressed ancient writers. Yeah, I think it still impresses people, actually. I think it's still like, what? You just like get rid of your whole skin just whenever? Just rebirth over and over. The snake can both kill and cure. It's therefore a symbol and attribute of the aggressive powers, the positive and negative, which rule the world. Can kill and cure. It's life and death, right? It has all these different aspects of the balancing of the dualities. He decided, where are we? Oh, yes, Jung decided finally that it's the most spiritual of all animals. Jung has pointed out that the Gnostics related it to the spinal cord and the spinal marrow, an excellent image of the way that unconscious expresses itself suddenly and unexpectedly with its peremptory and terrible incursions. He adds that psychologically, the snake is a symptom of anguish, expressive of abnormal stirrings in the unconscious, that it is of a reactivation of its destructive potentiality. This is for Jung, right? And the Gnostics. And yeah, the spinal cord and the spinal marrow is also connected with that central column, by the way. Energetically, that would be like a physical counterpart to the energetic structure. which you can kind of imagine, right? That's where all your nerve clusters are that lead up to your brain. I mean, it is like almost the same shape as we've been talking about, this caduceus, right? So is it a symptom of anguish? I mean, sure, if it is for you. I've always loved snakes myself. I had a snake when I was young. I think they're adorable. I just love them. I'm not like fascinated by them in the sense that I want to know all about their habitats, and I didn't like study them. I just like them as creatures. When people have snakes, I want to go hold them. I just think they're cool. I have a tattoo of a snake on my leg. I just always really liked snakes. I don't think of them in any negative sort of way. But I guess if you did, and especially if you have this like heavy Christian sort of symbolism in you, then you might associate snakes with pure evil, or you might just be scared of snakes. And so then if they appear in your dreams, then obviously for you, they would be more perhaps a symbol of that, what Jung is talking about, right? Distress or some sort of anxiety. That wouldn't be true for me. It'd be like a good thing. I'd be like, yay, snake. So it is a very personal thing. The serpent in Midgard in Norse mythology is proclaimed that the deluge will commence when the serpent awakens to destroy the universe. It's similar in the Bible, right? We have the great serpents, the ones who I'm forgetting the names of, who are also associated with flood, often Leviathan, for example. So that's also a kind of larger symbol that is across many cultures. And I'll tell you, the more I understand about what we're about to go through on Earth and this geomagnetic excursion we're in, and how this is actually a universal wave of energy that is going to come through the Milky Way, and then it's going to come through our solar system, and it's going to affect us, the more I understand that could literally be referring to that energetic wave, right? When that energetic wave hits, when it awakens, we have floods or we have catastrophes, right? It's like they're literally trying to tell us what has happened so many times. But the way that it gets passed down, it has to resolve into symbols. We don't communicate in any other way effectively. However, we've also been exceptionally dumbed down in this modern dark age. And so the symbols aren't quite working for everyone in quite enough clarity, perhaps, if it could ever matter. I mean, the wave's going to come no matter what you ever thought or did or created or didn't create on Earth, or whatever civilization got to or didn't get to, the wave still comes. So for those to perhaps be literally symbolizing that cosmic energy wave, that makes the most sense to me, you know? The legend of Buddha tells how the serpent wound itself around his body 7 times. But since it could not crush him, it turned into a youth bowing low before Gautama. It's another way of saying it, 7 times. It's not an accident. The snake wrapped around him 7 times, meaning each of his chakras was awakened, and each of them he had to essentially battle against his lower nature in order to rise up into his higher nature. And again, I think this is where people really sort of fall off. If you don't understand that the masters had to battle their lowest nature, if you imagine you don't have a lower nature, or that you've already overcome it, that's a dangerous place to be. I stress that everybody might understand. You have to be constantly vigilant, not even necessarily about what's out in the world, although that's true too. Your discernment has to be sharpest for yourself. If you think you aren't capable of great evil, you are wrong. So 7 times, right? Jesus talks about it too. He had to overcome temptation over and over again. And neither of them talk about it lightly. It's like, oh yeah, and then I just did. They're like, wow, like, yeah, barely got through that, you know? There, but by the grace of God. So the connection of the snake with the wheel is expressed in graphic form in the Gnostic symbol of the Ouroboros. That's, again, the snake eating its own tail, serpent biting its own tail. Half of this mythic being is dark, the other half light, as in the Chinese yin-yang symbol. Again, that's actually what I do have on my leg, is the light serpent and the dark serpent intertwined, biting each other's tails, otherwise known as the Orin of the Neverending Story. Yes, I didn't just love the Neverending Story and then get a tattoo. I loved the Never-Ending Story because it tells the story of all beings through their own ascension and the pitfalls therein. Everything you need to know, you can learn from the book, The Never-Ending Story. So that symbol is no accident. It wasn't placed there by accident. The person who wrote that is so clearly an initiate, so obviously trying to share as much as they can with people who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And so that symbol is this for a reason. It is the yin yang. It is the serpent eating its own tail. It is the Ouroboros. It is the energy of all things, all time, all places. So it clearly illustrates the essential ambivalence of the snake in that it pertains to both aspects of the cycle, the active and the passive, the affirmative and the negative, the constructive and the destructive. Like we said, you have the unawakened snake coiled at the bottom, and then you have the awakened snake, which is now the feathered serpent, which is now the emissary of God and the divine, right? The channel of light. It's both things. It's not either or. So especially when you're like, oh, the serpent is evil. Sure. If you're in your fallen state, it is. And if you're not, it's not. It was an important symbol for the Gnostics and especially for the Nicene sect, which is different from the Essene sect, which also was important too. Hippolytus, criticizing this doctrine, asserted that the snake was said to live in all objects and in all beings. So that's true too. As I talk about often, consciousness is the substrate of the entire universe, which is in all things. There is nothing that's not conscious, which is to say there's nothing that doesn't have this spark of divinity in it, which is to say that the serpent is in all things. Kundalini is an image of inner strength and these serpents intertwined. Snake coiled upon itself in the form of a ring is the Kundala. And that subtle part of the organism corresponding to the lower extremity of the spinal column. It's really just the base of your spinal column. That's where your root chakra is. At any rate, this is the case with the ordinary man. But as a result of exercises directed towards his spiritualization, Hatha Yoga, for instance, the snake uncoils and stretches up through wheels or chakras corresponding to the various plexuses of the body until it reaches the area of the forehead corresponding to the third eye of Shiva. It is then, according to the Hindu belief, that man recovers his sense of the eternal. So they just described all of it right here in this book. It's so awesome. Hatha Yoga, sure. There's actually 10 billion ways, if not infinite ways, to rising your energies within yourself. But some of these pathways might be the way for you, like Hatha Yoga. So there's just one example. Symbolism here probably relates to an ascending force, rising up. I like that they go on to just describe the same thing. They're like, it's probably like this. You're like, yeah, you literally just said that, actually. The heart is the central area, of course, center of all things. In other words, this symbol denotes the sublimation of the personality. You grow beyond yourself. You die to yourself and are born again. I'm adding that part, but this is what they're talking about, right? Okay. They talk about the 6 chakras, but there's in fact a 7th. It's unnamed. It's not represented visually, but may be regarded as analogous to climbing up the terraces of the ziggurat or mounting the steps pertaining to the 7 metals of the Mithraic ritual. Yeah. It is actually represented again in the caduceus. It's there at the top with the wings and the final point. But it is often represented as sort of outside of your own energy structure, right? It's the crown chakra is also often represented that way. We say it's like here at the top of the head, but it's actually just like outside of it. And it actually, like, if you reach it, it is like that is reaching the highest consciousness, which is not human and it's not yours, which is to say it's divine and it's everybody's. And that's why it's outside of you, right? We reflect that which we actually are in our structure, and our energy is no different. So it's often related to other symbols. It says one of these is the tree, which being unitary may be said to correspond to the masculine principle, in which case the Ophidian would represent the feminine. I'll say, the roots would be the feminine and the branches would be the masculine. The tree is also masculine and feminine, but I guess they're not going that direction here. They're saying the tree and the serpent are prefigurations of Adam and Eve. And they're not wrong there. Again, all of these things are much, much older than the Bible. The Bible is retelling all stories. Even if the things happened again, it's because that's how things happen. Just, you know, and so, yeah, none of it's new, and it won't be new the next time it happens. The tree of life is not an accident either. You eat of the tree of life, eating of your own energy, heightened all the way to the eternal. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Anything worth mentioning? The figure of the reptile nailed to a cross is the banishing of that feminine principle, which again is the way we're talking about it, not women and not females, but that lacking of will and allowing yourself to be just taken for a ride, just used as an energy channel, just, you know, whatever happens, like happens in various different ways and levels. And nailed to a cross, again, the cross is actually representing your energy channels too. The cross is actually representing you as a human being. Like you rise up in the center and you come out and expand here when you get to that level, or at the heart, some say. Cool, right? Either way, there's a little bit more to go on the energy channel above that expansion, which is the physical realm, where you can have this effect on others and on people and on yourself. That's the cross part. Otherwise, that is your energy channel to you becoming ever more human. And so they talk about the caduceus. They talk about Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent, which I sort of mentioned, why the feathers and the serpent are brought together sometimes. The dragon, I've gone into deep discussion of that symbol as well. You can go back to that episode about dragons if you can find it. A lot of my content just gets disappeared down the memory hole. But maybe that's one, if I can remember, that I'll put in my Gnostic TV cache of spiritual stuff. I'm rebirthing some of the old Middle Path episodes there on Gnostic TV, so you can go see those. And my tarot readings for each month are also there. So the link is right below wherever you're watching or you're listening if you haven't yet checked out Gnostic TV and what's over there. But again, I'm actually going to make the note to myself right now. Oh my God. Will I be able to read my own typing? It's like, Dragob, Edmund Sink. I bet I'll remember. Oh, here we have some Aryan stuff. Let's see. The seer Calcha saw this as an omen. The eagle carrying a snake. And this is how Mexico, by the way, that's where the flag comes from with the eagle and the serpent. This is where they saw their omen of where to build their capital city, right? So he's saying the seer Calcha saw this eagle carrying a snake as an omen portending the triumph of the Greeks, the masculine and patriarchal order of the Aryans, subduing the predominantly feminine and matriarchal principle of Asia. So yeah, either way, it's the similar meaning, energy, symbolism, but they're just using it in warfare, right? Aryans as the Greeks. All right, so the dragon is connected with the serpent. Similar reason, right? The dragon is a fully actualized, ascended master or high-level spiritual being. It's someone who has mastered all of themselves and raised themselves up out of the dirt, uncoiled that divine energy, allowed it to sprout up through them, and are able to therefore fly into heaven, so to speak, right? Connect with the divine. And that's what the dragon represents. So very similar. Mercury also associated with this, rising up of this energy through your central column. That is a mercurial energy. Your divine energy is mercurial. It rises. It can be fast. It has to do with communication. Again, with your third eye, with seeing and hearing beyond the material. And so Mercury is connected with this central energy column as well. And therefore also healing, and therefore also the snake. And anything else here, we'll see. Last paragraph. Finally, it says, according to Schneider, another person who knows who, I'm sure it tells you somewhere in this book, the sacrificed serpent is the symbolic equivalent of the swan's neck and of the swan itself, and it is by the swan that the hero is wafted heavenwards, plucking away upon his harp, they add. That is to say, the sacrifice of the serpent as a life force makes it possible to accept death gratefully like the swan, and to soar up to higher regions. Father Harris has suggested that the snake is symbolic of fertility and destruction, and that it is in this sense that it appears in the menhir of Cernunnos. I don't know what that is. It appears in opposition to the arrow in the effigy of the horned god of Cerdania. So they threw a lot together there in the final paragraph, but they're all, again, similar types of things. The snake, what it means, and what it is inside of us. So we come back now to this point where we are at the full moon in Ophiuchus. This is, again, Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, the 10th and the 11th of June. And here is that Mastering the Zodiac by Athen Commenti newsletter I was talking about. If you're signed up for his newsletter, Mastering the Zodiac Insiders, then you get this delivered to your email once a week. Every week, he just highlights some of the things going on astrologically. Really well done. Of course, you know, I love Athen and I love his work and I love True Sidereal Astrology. So great for me. But let's read what he says about this full moon in Ophiuchus. It says, this week's full moon rises in the constellation of Ophiuchus, offering a reflective pause in the yearly cycle, one that's often overlooked, yet deeply impactful. Ophiuchus, often called the serpent bearer, sits quietly between Scorpio and Sagittarius. It is the center of our Milky Way galaxy. So he's not saying it represents it. He's not saying it sits in that direction. He's saying it is at the center. It is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Ophiuchus invites a conversation with what lies just under the surface, those internal threads we sometimes ignore or explain away. I want to highlight that this, you know, he's not going to necessarily talk about it in all of the things that I just talked about, but I'm going to pull it back to that, seeing the parts of yourself that you haven't seen yet, seeing the parts of yourself that you think aren't there, seeing the parts of yourself that you imagine you're totally beyond now or something, right? And especially seeing where you're wounded, because that's where our greatest weaknesses are. If you don't know your own wounds in this life, especially, then you're probably going to fall victim to them. You're probably going to fall victim to their shadow. So you have to see your wounds. And if you're one of these people who's like, I've had a great life, I've had no wounds, like, that's not true. I'm not trying to make you a victim. I'm not trying to force you into like some sort of therapy. I'm saying everybody does. Everybody has wounds. And they're almost always in our first 7 years of childhood. Almost always. We have some other wounds that come around. We have other things that happen, other traumas and other hardships. But we have our deepest wounds often in those times. And so, you know, just as a starting point, perhaps, if you haven't yet found yours, you're not sure where they're at, is a good place to go looking. So Ophiuchus invites conversation with these things, right? These things that are lying beneath the surface, basically our shadow. Those internal threads, he says, that we sometimes ignore or explain away. But a full moon, by its nature, lights things up. Something you felt brewing may finally rise into focus. It could be an old pattern, a repeating emotion, a relationship dynamic, or even a part of yourself you've tucked away for the sake of ease or acceptance. When the moon illuminates this part of the sky, it's a nudge to engage with those pieces and bring them into form. This is actually a huge opportunity, I'm going to add. This Ophiuchus full moon is a huge opportunity to become aware of your shadow at a deeper level than ever. The things that you try to push away and ignore, the things that you try not to look at, the things that you've tried not to feel, good time to light them up. Good time to bring them into full focus and say, there you are. I see you. You cannot master yourself without seeing those things. Cannot master yourself without seeing, here's where I tend to fail myself. Here's where I tend to fall into my lowest nature. Here's where I tend to fall into temptation. And what we make the mistake of most often is thinking that that has to be like a drug addiction or like a gambling or like a money issue or something external, where it's much more often an internal thing where you criticize other people or you hate them or you're jealous of them, right? Or you don't even see them. Or you ignore how you hurt them, right? For me, it's like often an insane level of mistrust in the world. And so I'm looking for harm. I'm looking for who's about to hurt me. So even the slightest thing, I like pounce on it. And I'm like, you don't fucking hurt me. And I do it for people too. I'm like, you don't hurt them either. You don't hurt anybody. Like, I am way protective of myself and others. But I know that. So even though I still have the ability to fall into it, I am much more likely to catch it and to go, okay, you're doing that thing. You're looking for danger and there is none. Let it go, right? It becomes a strength then, because then I'm able to help protect people and I can protect myself. And it's very rare that somebody will hurt me because I'll see it coming, right? But if it's not looked at, it just becomes a problem. Right? We all have, I could list many more of mine, but I'm just giving you an example of something that, right, I know about myself. It's no longer a shadow for me because I see it. And then it becomes a strength instead. And now I become the healer instead of the victim. Now I become the masculine instead of the feminine. So you see what this serpent energy does. And you see why Ophiuchus is so powerful. And you see why this is about the wounded healer, and why even though what you might be facing in the next 2 days are some of your shortcomings, you turn them into gold. You rise up higher in yourself and your consciousness. It serves you and the whole world. You heal all of yourself, you heal all of the world. So it's a beautiful thing. Very much the opposite. We think if we see our own shortcomings, we're going to somehow fail, or someone is going to not love us, or like, right? Or like, we're just going to look a certain way and then people will like us, or just all sorts of weird things that we think. It's exactly the opposite. If you see it, you can master it, you become a higher form of yourself, and now you serve yourself and you serve everybody else. So that's the point of this, right? So Athen goes on to say, this isn't about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about reintegrating with the you that's already there. Right? And that's exactly what it is. This is kind of what I was describing, where once I see it, now I can turn it to my advantage. Now I can see how I can actually use this for good for myself and others, and how I can not let it master me, but I can master it. I'm not changing myself. I can't. I mean, that is who I am, right? That is how I was born into this life. That is what I've gone through. That is what I'm carrying with me. We're not trying to cut parts of ourselves off. We're trying to make ourselves whole. We got to bring all the shadow into the light and let it flow through this central channel so we can be whole and we can be the best channels we can be. He goes on to say, often the parts we reject are the ones carrying the most energy, the most creativity, the most freedom. But first, they ask us for our attention. They ask to be seen without judgment, to be heard without silencing them. So again, this is what we've done most of our lives, is we've like cut parts of ourselves off. We ignore parts of ourselves. We just, right, pretend we're someone else. That takes so much energy. When you can free this up, you can't imagine. You can't imagine how your life can change until you actually do it. You can't imagine the parts of you you weren't seeing until you saw them. And you're like, whoa, I was doing all that. I can't tell you how many times in my life people have been like, wow, Lindsay, you really like, grown or changed, or like you're happier, or like all these things. And I'm like, yeah, that's what can happen when you free yourself of all of that energy it took to hide from yourself. You can't change what you are. You can only accept it and cause yourself to be whole. He says, Ophiuchus holds the image of a figure who befriended a serpent, not to kill it, but to understand it. That's the kind of strength this moon calls for, a strength that doesn't come from domination, but from intimacy and truth. A willingness to stand with what you don't yet fully understand, to feel it, to let it teach you something. Over the next few days, take note of your emotional weather. What keeps returning, no matter how many times you try to brush it off? What do you feel pulled toward, even if it doesn't make logical sense? Journaling, dream work, time alone in nature, or slow intentional movement like Tai Chi or walking meditation can support this kind of inward healing. Let your body speak. It remembers things the mind forgets. What emerges during this full moon may not be comfortable, but it will be alive. And what's alive can grow. You don't need to have all the answers. You only need the willingness to stay present with what surfaces. And I want to second that, because a lot of people then get lost, like, okay, well, like, how do I find my shadow and what do I do? and it really, sometimes you can do that and life will answer you, right? Directly. And other times you're just like, I don't know. I feel kind of shitty, or I'm kind of scared, or this or that. All you have to do is notice. All you have to do is be present for what's actually true for you, right? I say this all the time, like, your job is not to understand every thought or every emotion or every feeling your body has. Your job is just to notice it and sit with it and just accept it and say, yep, that's how I feel. Yep, that's what I'm thinking about. Yep, that's what my body's doing, right? And when you're just present with it and you just accept it, you will often get much more insight and wisdom than you probably think is possible. You are your own best master. And all you have to do is be present with yourself. So notice what comes up. Life has a way of, especially with these moments astrologically that are powerful, and life has a way of just orchestrating things just the right way for you to sort of get some insight, some healing, some awareness, give yourself some presence. So just let it be. He finalizes this by saying this full moon brings a reintegration, a weaving together of what's been scattered. And in that weaving, you might find that the version of yourself you've been searching for isn't somewhere far away. It's here in your hands, waiting to be reintegrated. It's so true. In my spiritual work, we're often doing, people are often receiving, when they work with me, what we call soul retrieval. And it's basically what we're talking about here. It's some piece of you that you left all kinds of far away in time. Could be lifetimes ago. Could be some trauma you committed or received the brunt of lifetimes ago. And there's a piece of you just is stuck there. You couldn't handle it. You rejected it. You ignored it. You're in denial. You died. You moved on. You never healed it. And usually our life is like trying to bring it back up. It's like, hey, it's always calling our attention, but we continue to ignore it because it's too big. So often our traumas we're experiencing in this life are rehashings of old traumas we've already done. We just never finished. And so often in this healing that I do with people, whether it's a sound healing or it's a spirit guide session, we're getting those pieces back, and people receive it in their energy body. I watch them do it. Their guides bring us back to some life. I see what happened. I'm describing it. They're bringing it back, and I see it come back into their system. I see their whole central channel brighten. I see the flow increase. They might cry. They might just feel a shiver. Like, there's all kinds of different reactions people have, but then their lives change. Their way of living changes. Their level of presence with themselves changes. And you don't need me to do that. It might be a shortcut for you. It might be easier for you. But anybody has this technology within them. We all have this as our birthright. And really, this is the process. It's just being present with yourself. Giving yourself that time and space to be present, to notice your thoughts, to notice the way your body feels, to notice the things that come up, to notice the emotions you feel. That's a luxury in this life. If you can give that to yourself, even just a little dose each day, you're doing great. You're doing great. We can call that meditation. This is another thing. People go searching for all these guided meditations. They're great. I'm not saying don't. I'm saying, like, all you actually have to do is just sit down and get quiet and just be with yourself and just notice yourself. That's a really powerful healing. I'm going to tell you, I mean, like, nobody does that. We've been talking about this whole time. That's what I've done. So you can do, anyone can do it. Heal yourself, heal the world. All you have to do is be present. So we've got this great opportunity, this, again, tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday of this specific week. You know, again, these symbols are eternal. You could go back to this episode again and again, whether there's an Ophiuchus full moon or not, and just get another dose of like everything that came through today. But this is right here, a temporal marker of this time that we have this opportunity to really get into our shadow and reintegrate ourselves for the betterment of ourselves and all. So I hope you take it. If you would like any assistance in that, you know where to find me at rogueways.org. You can schedule a session. I do not have a lightning oracle round tomorrow. I do have one the following Tuesday. For those of you who just want to have that sort of quick message and that sort of type of session, that'll be next week. And otherwise, you know, I'm here for other types of sessions and consultations. You can go to rogueways.org and click on schedule. And again, if you are wanting your true sidereal chart, you want to look into how your, you know, signs change, how things might be slightly different for you or massively different for you. Again, especially if you already know your regular astrology chart, your tropical side astrology chart, and you can kind of compare the two. That's even more fun for my money. But they're both great, right? But if you want your True Sidereal, you can use this link again on rogueways.org under the favorite things tab. Here we have the True Sidereal Astrology from Athen Commenti. You can use this link, and that does support the show if you use this link. So I do appreciate that. But again, wherever you're watching or listening, right below you is the link for $20 off that chart. So also gives me an affiliate boost, but gives you a discount. So go ahead and use that link if you're going to do anything with Athen anytime soon. Then check that out. And that is the show. That is Ophiuchus full moon. I also can't tell you how synchronistic just the Ophiuchus full moon is. I couldn't have known. I'm not following True Sidereal enough. I'm not looking at the sky every night. I get Athens newsletters, and that's how I know what's going on. I would not have ever known that this was happening, but it couldn't have happened at a more synchronistic time, at a more beautiful time. For me, I'm about to do that Blazing Brightness retreat, which I'm leading up in Crestone, Colorado, just less than 10 days away. We're all going to be gathered up there going through some really powerful energies. And it's perfect that we all get this opportunity to do a little house cleaning, do a little bit of reintegration of what we might have dropped along the way of our path of our soul's ascendance, bring it back into the light, and really become even stronger, even more connected to who we really are, and even better healers of ourselves and everyone else. But it's true for everyone. You don't have to be coming to the retreat in order for that to be true. But I will tell you one more thing. In a couple days, you're going to get an email if you're on my email list. You're going to see it on Substack if you subscribe on my Substack. And this is going to be an invitation to join us for that retreat from afar. So if you know me, if you know that you've received blessings from me, or you've done tarot with me, or any of these things, or even if you don't know me, but you just understand the universe and energy, you know that there is no bounds to time and space. There is no bounds by spirit. Spirit can go anywhere, do anything, be at any time, past, present, or future. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter how we're connecting. It is just as powerful. So if you have been wanting to come to the Blazing Brightness retreat and you weren't able to come, or you just feel called at this point to be a part of it, if you go to the shop on rogueways.org, you can actually join us from afar. You can actually be in the field with us. That field knows no bounds in time and space. Oh, we are together in one of the most powerful places on earth, at one of the most powerful times in the year, at one of the most powerful times in a long time, doing this really high level purification, healing, reintegration, purification, upliftment, right? Ascending through our energy channels, opening our spiritual channels. You can be connected with that energy as well. Just like if you were receiving a blessing from me, you don't have to be there to receive it. So you won't be there. You won't be seeing it. You won't be there in person, but your soul will be connected and you will be receiving the blessings and the benefits in that way, which is powerful. So if you want to do that, that is now available for you. You can go to rogueways.org and see that in the shop. If you have questions about it, you can contact me. We can talk about it. And you'll be receiving emails, like I said, if you're signed up. If you're not signed up yet, why? You should be. You should definitely go to Substack, rogueways.substack.com, and be reading those channel messages, which again are very synchronistic with everything that we talked about tonight, unintentionally, but perfectly, as always. And until you know just how perfect everything is and you are, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Yeah, come on, Rat Kings, baby. It's the rap machine. Yeah, check it. Great bearded pirate, my motherfucker unknown. Yeah, come on. In the place with my fist up, meaning I resist the bullshit that they feed us and lead us this, cause this shit's about to get crazy like a mosh pit. We lost it, toss it, let's start it again. Cause now with technology, with smarter men and women, this is the beginning, not the end. If this is the message of hope that I send, look on your TV, it's a culture of death. They'll keep on lying to the very last breath. We keep on striving and spreading the truth. It's hard to survive in this world for the youth. The door is closed, the old world is dead. Let's have an age of understanding instead. I'll include you and you include me. Let's see what we can build with some positivity. Let's go, you're moving too slow. Let me see your hands if you know what I know. Come on.
Rap like mummy, ain't no dummy in my rhyming. Started flowing freestyle and now they rhyming loud silence. On with the violence, bodies piling with the gray-bearded pirate. On your TV in 4K 3D virtual reality. Casualty of urban warfare. I know but I'm not scared, just prepared and aware. Shining my light through the tunnel of hope. Into the rope, but I'ma give it one more pull. Till the family is full. Take the bull by the horns and lead it to the slaughter. That would be harder and you would be softer. Sometimes I'm a monster, and you forever imposter, with your champagne and lobster. This royalty, the way it was supposed to be. Hopefully the new door opens and the old one closes, with way more focus and growth to mold us, and the truth that they should have told us.
To them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rulers that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The paupers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet. Everyone got a gift, everyone got a light. They want you to forget that ish, cause they can't dim the bright. The positive vibration takes you past the sign shackles, from the sewers and the alleys in the moving castles. Who these assholes really serving with an exposed Achilles surgeon around the corner lurking to prove ascension trumps perversion? Learn them to catch fish and unplug the signal. Show them the simpletons now build the fucking temples.